Hello, everyone. Welcome to MGG Live. We're going to be doing some more tier ranking today. A few weeks ago, I did a tier ranking of all the main consoles from kind of the first generation all the way up to the eighth. There was much debate in the chat. I was pissing people off, and other people were cheering me on based on my rankings. Honestly, it's the most fun I've had ever doing a ranking, period. Today we're going to be doing handhelds. Again, we're going to be going all the way from the Microvision up through the Playdate. I'll explain that list in a little bit. If you're watching from the Retro Bliss Gaming channel, welcome. We're doing a simulcast. Phil isn't on the podcast, but as you may or may not know, Phil has been having some health issues the last while, and he was on vacation. And so I offered to simulcast my lives to his channel as well, just to keep stuff on his channel. So wherever you are, welcome. And I can see the chat from all of them, so you don't have to worry about that. This Saturday, I was gifted by the Intellivision gamer who has been obsessed with this game lately, Castle of Death. He gifted me the ROM. And so I have not opened it yet, and I will not open it until Saturday. But Castle of Death for the Intellivision, you guys are going to watch my first full playthrough. I'm going to play right to the end. There's infinite continues, but the goal is to die as few times as possible. And so the hope is that I will be able to beat Casey's. So he had played it before as a homebrew highlight, and then he really liked it. So then he did a full playthrough live on his channel 2 weeks ago, I think. And he ended up getting 30 deaths. So my goal in my first time is to do it in under 30 deaths and see if I can beat Casey. He has since done a 0 death run, which is incredibly impressive. He had the advantage of he did play it once before, but I've had the advantage of I've watched him play it. So hopefully that evens out, and then I can pull out the win and get maybe 28 deaths when I do it. Let's say hello to the chat. Intellivision Gamer, Speak of the Devil, says he's never had many handhelds, but he loves tier ranking videos. I love tier ranking videos too. Ever since I did that last one, like as long as it's like friendly fighting, if somebody's being an actual jerk in the chat, I don't like that. But friendly debate and fiery debate, particularly with guys like Jeremiah Thomas, I get a kick out of it. It's fun. And yeah, I realized just before I went live that you were wearing this shirt yesterday. This is Sibling Rivalry. The channel's My Drunk Sibling. They're really good friends of both mine and Casey's. So go check them out. Absolutely. And Casey says he loves Phil and hopes he feels better soon. Yeah, he was feeling well enough that he streamed earlier today. So, and he was playing Intellivision. I unfortunately missed the stream, but I watched it back after. So, and he talks a bit about what he's been going through. We were supposed to have a Retro Bliss go back to the Retro Bliss Rewind next week. I am not sure if that's going to happen. I'm going to talk with Phil a bit about that, whether it'll be a Retro Bliss Rewind, but I'll be streaming regardless next week. Ted Adams says he's coming here from Retro Bliss. Hope he feels better. Yes, we all hope he feels better, and welcome. Yes, Castle of Death, under 30 deaths. Can we do it? But I promised him I'm not going to open the game until Saturday. So if I die like 5 times in the first hour, it may not be bad. Zen Bloke, yeah, you're not late. You're just, I'm just saying hello to everybody. I haven't started ruining everybody's childhood yet. Casey has high hopes in me, and he says the game's not easy. So, he did do 5 deaths live last night. I didn't watch that. I watched the first time he played through where he got the 30 deaths. So let me add to the stage what we're going to be doing tonight. So I have a bunch of handhelds here. Now, one thing that you're going to notice is I put the Virtual Boy here. I didn't put the Virtual Boy in my consoles one, and there was more than a couple people that are like, oh, what about the Virtual Boy? When I was younger, when the Virtual Boy first came out, we all viewed it as a portable console. Now, it's not a handheld. It isn't. Um, but the whole idea, like I remembered imagining, oh yeah, I'd bring it to school and I'd be out in the field, like laying in the field and playing Virtual Boy. I never got one. I never knew anybody who got one. But so I put it in here with the handheld list. It's a portable console, or at least it was kind of intended to be. So that's why it's here. It's going to get its due in this list. There's a bunch of handhelds missing. I did compress some of them. And Jeremiah Thomas, yes, you and I are going to fight a lot. Although, so yeah, we'll see. I do like the links. I like the links a lot. So for instance, I have the Game Boy. I don't have the Game Boy Light. I don't have, like, we're going to just lump all Game Boy. I'll talk about different models of it. Same with the Game Boy Color. Game Boy Advance, I did put the SP and the original in there because they're different enough. I don't have like Tiger Electronics stuff. I don't have standalones like Mattel Football. I do have the DS, the DSL, and the DSi because they will kind of be different for me. For the 3DS line, this is the new 3DS, but I'm going to be talking about the 3DS, the 3DS XL. Like I don't have the XL versions of the DSi and that. And then of course I have the 2DS here. And I've gone all the way up to the Playdate because I do have a Playdate. Also, I've got the PSP Go. I don't have all the different versions of the PSP. I don't have the two different versions of the Vita. We're just going to talk about them as kind of a conglomerate. Same here with the Wonder Swan. I don't have the Wonder Swan in the Wonder Swan color. Neo Geo, Pocket, Color. Like, we're just going to talk about them all as one thing. And the OLED Vita for the win. You will be happy with where I put the Vita, I think. I really, really like the Vita. So we're going to go all the way back, and I am not going to make the same mistake that you mean you use your DSIs for Intellivision, not your Game Boys. You use this guy right here. Right here. Okay, so the Microvision. I'm not going to make the same mistake that I made last time. Last time I took the Magnavox Odyssey, which in hindsight, like, it's an iconic piece of hardware. It started the game. It absolutely deserves super props. But I had put it at an A last time, and it just screwed me up for the rest of the podcast. I'm not going to make the same mistake here. The Microvision started the game. The actual games are big plates that go on, and they would reveal what buttons you could press. And then there was a little knob at the bottom, like a spinner controller. They're super simple games. I would make the argument that in most cases it's more fun to play than the Magnavox Odyssey, but I'd still put it at D. Now, if we're going by, hey, props for you for making the first console that, portable console with interchangeable games and all that, of course it would be up here. But in terms of playability now, I've got one. I like it for its collectability. It's a fun piece of history. If I never could play it again, there would be no tears. And so the Microvision goes right at the bottom there as a D tier. I would not call it an F tier. I wouldn't call any of these F tier. But it's a D tier for me. The Nintendo Game Boy. Okay, so I have some. So it's by no means the best way to play Game Boy games, but it is the console that started Nintendo's absolute domination of the portable market right up until the end of the DS. I think, like, it also established what's important. A good game library is important. Nintendo shipped with Tetris, which was an absolute phenomenon. The Game Boy shipped with Tetris, which was an absolute phenomenon. The Game Boy had really good battery life. and only took 4 batteries. That was an advantage that it had over its 2 main competitors here. The Game Boy had good controls. It had a poor screen, mono audio out, but those were never big issues. And in fact, despite the fact that both of its competitions had better systems, it did so well and so strong that it did not feel the need to upgrade even to color until much, much later. And I think the Game Boy, it's not the best way to play Game Boy games at all, but I think it deserves its props as an S tier handheld. Raza's Retro, how's it going? The best handheld is no handheld. I don't agree. I actually quite like handhelds. I don't play them nearly as much as I play, let's be honest, even my phone now. But I do have a soft spot for handhelds. I've got a pretty decent collection of games for a variety of systems. If I was to pick one of the Game Boy models, I'd probably go with the Game Boy Light. I think it's called, just the thinnest model. The original one is like carrying a brick sometimes, but still much smaller, much more compact than its competition. Raza only owned 2 back in the day, Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance. Well, you know what? Those 2 pretty good ones. If you weren't happy with those, I'm not sure you'd be happy with any of the other ones on this list. They're pretty good consoles. The Atari Lynx. Oh, and yes. Yeah. So I actually omitted emulation consoles. I don't have anything here that's like, oh, here's a collection of 30 Atari games or, whatever. But I do have the Evercade here, which is primarily cartridges that have old games on them. The Atari Lynx. The Atari Lynx was way ahead of its time. It's got a color screen. It's got left or right hand controls. You can flip it around to have the D-pad on the right side and the buttons on the left. It has a comparatively small but really good game library. There are definitely some stinkers. There's some stinkers on all these systems, but it had a really good game library. Innovative controls. The first model is absolutely enormous. You can barely call it portable. The second model, definitely better. It takes up a smaller footprint. Funny that so these are handhelds, and the idea of a handheld, I guess, is you can throw it in your pocket. Keep in mind, in the 90s, we all wore big cargo pants and stuff like that, so we had big, massive pockets to hold our Atari Lynx. Its biggest Achilles heel, and the biggest Achilles heel, honestly, for all of these consoles, I would say up to the Game Boy Advance SP here, the one with the backlight, is poor screens. And that's more something of the time. If it was a static game, like, say, Tetris, looks pretty good. But as soon as you started moving, all of these screens start getting blurry. For most of these consoles, you can get modern LCD screens to replace the old screens. Also, with the Atari Lynx and the Game Gear in particular, and also with the Turbo Express, capacitors in the late 80s, early 90s weren't that great. And so there's like you can find one of these for $10. You can find a Game Gear for $10 now, but you'll have to recap it. I've recapped dozens of them. The Atari Lynx, though, for the time that it came out, I would say the Model 2 with the good game library, the color screen that is lit, the ability to play in many different ways, I would definitely put the Atari Lynx at A tier. It is an excellent handheld. I play mostly now on the analog pocket, but I like the game library. I like the game format. It's these little cards with like a hook on the end, so you can pull them out easily. Um, it is an excellent handheld, not without its problems and a poor battery life. Let's pop into the chat here. Just keep track of things. Ted Adam Green says, I love handhelds and the Miu Mini Plus is delightful. And 13-year-old me with a Coleco football LED handheld would have been thrilled. Zen Bloke had a Game Gear in his youth. I did not own one when I was younger, but I remember going to a birthday party of a friend of mine and he got one for his birthday. And I was just, my mind was blown because I hadn't seen the Atari Lynx either at that point. Yeah, and Christopher says the same thing. The Game Boy, I'm presuming he means the Game Boy. Pretty good handheld back in the day. Not the best way to play Game Boy games. I'd certainly agree with that. But I think because of its iconic place in history, that's what pushes it up to S tier. Otherwise, I'd probably drop it down to A tier. Mr. Postile says he never used to care for handhelds when he's younger, but now he asks his wife for handies all the time. I've got to be careful because I'm simulcasting on Phil's channel, and Phil's channel is a PG channel. Mine's a PG-13 channel. I don't do anything too drastic. So if you're watching from Phil's channel and expecting not to see comments from Poe, this might disappoint you. Someone stole Cannabis Kid's OG Game Boy back in the day. That sucks. Looking forward to the Atari Game Station Go for Christmas time. I've heard there's a lot of people looking forward to that. Game Boy Advance was pretty awesome. Very true about the poor screens. Yeah, the 90s were full of poor screens. You needed external light sources, and especially for the Game Boy consoles, there were all these third-party things you could get that would shine light on your screen and do all that, and even make the screen bigger, like with magnifying lens. The caps on all of them. Ty, if you find one that doesn't need a recap, that's like finding a needle in a haystack. Yes, I agree. Yes, we all love Phil. Yeah, so if there was Game Boy revisions on the list, you'd put the revision like the Game Boy Light in A tier. Yeah, I mean, I think the Game Boy Light is a better way to play, but it doesn't have the same iconic status. So I would probably agree with you. I think it would go in an A tier. All right, moving on to the Game Gear. Game Gear had a lot going for it. Sega came out with the Genesis. They were living large, and I've got a little, there we go, a little fly just flying right there. They were living large, and they jumped into the handheld market with a honestly really good system. Again, it's got a lit color screen. The graphics on the games, it was basically a portable Master System. There was an adapter where you could use Master System games. Had a TV tuner. It was a really good system. It suffered from the same things that the Lynx suffered from. Again, screen, if it's in big motion, it'd be blurry. Not a problem specific to the Game Gear. Battery life sucked. And so like if you were playing, you might want to plug in and there was tons of aftermarket accessories to try to boost that battery life. You have bigger battery packs, or you can plug into a cigarette lighter in your car. And obviously the capacitors, that's more of a modern thing. If you're getting a Game Gear, you're going to have to get it recapped if you don't know how to do that yourself. But I would put it in, and it's got a pretty solid game library too. I would put it in the same category as the Lynx. I'd put it at A tier. This kind of handheld generation, this first handheld generation, well, okay, so not first handheld, but you know what I mean. Like when things really took off. Honestly, as a kid, wouldn't have been disappointed with any of them. They're all excellent systems. Um, Raz's sister won his Game Boy Advance from a contest on the CBC. It was a kids show that ran 4 to 5 p.m. during the weekdays. Game Boy Advance didn't come out when I was still a kid, so I think I'm a little older than you, Raz. 90s handhelds were battery munchers. It was like the Game Boy wasn't bad, but these guys right here, they were absolutely. You'd sit and play for an hour or two, and then you'd need new batteries, and some of them took like six batteries. They were beasts. Is there like one machine that doesn't go through batteries like they're going out of style? Yeah, and again, that this is one of the reasons that Nintendo was successful as it was with the Game Boy, is because the Game Boy, all handhelds eat batteries, but it didn't eat them nearly as badly because it didn't have a backlit screen, it didn't have a color screen. It cut the right corners to preserve battery life, which, as it turns out, is very important for a handheld. Ted Adam had Genesis and then Game Gear. It was a great, man, 89, 90, 91, just pinnacle Sega height. Yeah, it was an awesome time to be a Sega fan, for sure. Yes, all right, take care. Jeff to the moon. So yeah, my thought with the Microvision was it started the game, but I made the mistake last time is that I took the Magnavox Odyssey and I put it in an A. The Microvision, compared to everything else on this list, it's an oddity. Certainly fun at the time. I'm not poo-pooing the Microvision, but compared to the other stuff on this list, I think it belongs in the D. Yeah, so I'm a decade older than Raza is. Game Gear heats batteries like it's Pac-Man. Take care, Raza. Didn't say Munchers. I'm being good. That's all right. Munchers is all right. It depends on what you're referring to. This is not a hot take. The Game Gear screen has not aged well. Neither has the Link screen, and neither has the Game Boy screen. Like I said, the 90s, they got a little better as it went on, but it was not a good time for screens. If you want to play on an original system, I would recommend either a full recap in order to get the best you can out of those screens, or get the LED modified, or do what I do and play everything on the Analog Pocket. Tiger Electronics. There was a few Tiger Electronic games that I really liked. And yeah, Microvision was a step up from those Tiger handhelds. I'd say it's about the same fun level depending on the handheld. And Oz 90s kid, welcome. Okay, so the Virtual Boy. Nintendo's biggest disaster of a system. In North America, I think the library is like 12, 13 games. I've got 10 of them. I think I'm missing Jack Boys and Waterworld, which are the stupid expensive ones. It's got a few more games if you include the Japanese ones. A lot of people complained about getting headaches from the red LEDs. The reason they used red LEDs is because they were cheap. I thankfully have never gotten a headache playing my Virtual Boy. At the same time, I don't think I've ever played it for more than an hour at a time. There's a couple pretty good games on it. But there's a reason it was an absolute flop when it came out. It's cumbersome to play. I have it here with the portable systems. It is not very portable. I even have like the Blockbuster case, um, which is very nice. It's a good collector's item. I'm able to bring it anywhere, but then you got to set it up on a table or lay down on the ground and kind of rest the headset on your head. Um, the controller feels pretty good. The 3D effect is pretty good, but it's just got way too many problems to really be anywhere higher than a D. Um, if they had done like white LEDs so that you had like black and white gameplay instead of red, if they had somehow gotten like a really good strap so that you could just strap it on and somehow shrink the headset a bit, it would move it higher. But just the way it came out, there is a reason it's Nintendo's biggest flop of all time. Um, it makes the Wii U look like a stroke of genius from Nintendo. So it's like I'd love to put it higher, but Nintendo fans, you can shed your tears quietly while I leave that at D. uh, Jeff's a very reasonable person. He can agree. um, Oz knew somebody that blamed the Virtual Boy on having to get glasses as a kid. I don't know if it was that bad. Maybe. Um, Cannabis Kid loved tennis and bowling for the Virtual Boy. There are some good games on it, which is a damn good thing because there was, like I said, there was only like 13 released. You can totally emulate Virtual Boy on MetaQuest, and I do. That would be really cool, especially if you could adjust the red level to be not quite so glaring. I don't mind it being red, but maybe muted a bit. That would be really cool. And some kind of reimagining of console would be cool. I think, yeah, I mean, there are plenty of VR headsets out there. It wouldn't be difficult at all, I don't think, to make that so that you could just play that, and wherever you look, it's just like you're looking inside a Virtual Boy, so you wouldn't even get the motion sickness of like moving around. That would be a good idea. All right, moving on. We are going to talk about the Turbo Express. This is the first console on this list that I don't own one. I would scoff at it back in the day when I would see it offered for $300-400. I was like, that's way too much to pay for a Turbo Express. It has the same problem where most of them need recapping at the very least. It also, like the Sega Game Gear, had a TV tuner accessory, but really the biggest value of this is that you could play your TurboGrafx games, just the TurboGrafx game cards, on the Turbo Express. And so you had really the full console experience, albeit with a not very good screen, but the full console experience. It had all the controller functionality that you'd want. You could do turbo on both 1 and 2 buttons. It was a tank, though. It was big. It dwarfed the Game Boy. Think of like a Game Gear put on its side and then just make it thicker. That was the Turbo Express. It was also probably worse than the Game Gear and the Lynx for battery power. This is something that you definitely wanted to plug in if you could. It is really cool piece of history. It is well executed, and it is certainly in the 90s. If you were a rich kid, because it was also expensive, if you were a rich kid, you could play full console games on the go, unlike your friends that had the Game Boy or the Lynx or the Game Gear. You could take advantage of that full library. But I think with its size, with its terrible, and I mean like abysmal, like it's absolutely abysmal battery life, I would put the Turbo Express at a B. Um, if it was a little smaller, if it had better battery life, honestly, it could jump up to S because that TurboGrafx library is pretty good. Um, and TurboGrafx is known for a lot of shooters with stuff moving by. The screen, its refresh rate or whatever, led to a lot of blurry gameplay on Turbo Express. I have a friend with one. I've played it. I've played multiple games on it. It's not comfortable to hold, but man, it had potential for S tier. If the technology, and you're limited by the technology of the age. If the technology had been advanced enough for it to have a better screen and be a little smaller, I think Turbo Express could have absolutely been S tier. But because of when it came out and because of what they had to do in order to make it, I would put it at B tier for me. So Christopher Lawrence says, I'd say that the people only remember Virtual Boy for two things: a flop and a handheld where you could play Wario, VB, and Jack Bros. Exactly. I agree with CK. I like the tennis on it as well. There was a few good games, but I think people remember it for being a flop and headaches as well. Zenbloat played on a Virtual Boy a couple years ago, and that's all I'm going to say. It's a neat experience. Is it something that I go back to often? No. Ice Cream Man, enjoy your ice cream, Jeff. Yes, 100%. The tech just wasn't in line with the concept. And that happens sometimes, and that's not the last time we're going to mention that. Because the next thing we're going to talk about is the Sega Nomad. This is Sega's response to the Turbo Express. I don't know which came out first, but I'm going to call it Sega's response to the Turbo Express. It's a portable Genesis. And it had I have one. It's got the 6 buttons on it. It takes full Sega Genesis carts, which is, it's good because it's supposed to be a portable Genesis and it plays Genesis games, which is great. It plays them with a worse screen. This is the 90s. We accept that. The fact that we're portable and playing console games is good enough for us. At the same time, its battery life is terrible. And Sega Genesis games are like, they're full cartridges, right? It's not like the TurboGrafx where you've got these little cards and you could fit 4 or 5 of them in your pocket if you want. If you've got 4 or 5 Genesis carts in your pocket, you look like a pack mule. Not a bad idea. Executed well. It's comfortable to play. It isn't, I think, too bulky. It's large, but it doesn't feel as bulky as the Turbo Express to me. Just again, the idea of taking full cartridges, like, can you imagine if Nintendo had come out with this and you're walking around with Super Nintendo cartridges, which are even bigger, plugging them into this thing. And I know there was, it's probably like 15 years ago now, but like the Super Boy or whatever, there is a portable Super Nintendo. And my mindset with that is like, why do we need that? Especially now, in 2025, when we can emulate Super Nintendo on our phone, or Genesis on our phone, or whatever system you want, really, up to a point. Yeah, I think you're right. The Turbo Express was released earlier than the Nomad. I'll get to the comments in a second here. But again, not a bad idea. Maybe not thought completely through. I would have liked if, because especially at the point that the Nomad came out, the Genesis was end of life, if not, just a little past its end of life. You could re-release those games as smaller cartridges and maybe try to do something else on a smaller form. That would have been more portable. This is another system that you want to sit next to a socket and plug it in if you can. I would probably put this at the same level as the Turbo Express. Held back by the time, but also well, maybe even one under. Not because it's a bad system, but because the concept of, like, unless you're walking around with just one cart all day, it kind of defeats the purpose of handheld gaming when you have games that are the size of your competition's console. Yes, so the Nomad did have a way to connect to the TV, and then you could use it as a controller and play that way. And Christopher says, pretty sure the Turbo Express was released 5 years earlier than the Sega Nomad. I don't know if it was that much earlier, but I'm 99.9% sure it was significantly earlier. I'm going to leave the Nomad at C. It's because of the form factor of the games. And obviously it's a system designed to play those games, but making something portable and then having games that are, like I said, at the same size as your competition's console, probably not the best idea. And again, even at this point, not learning the battery life yet. Oh, right. We get to talk about the only Tiger Electronics thing on this list, the Gamecom, or as some people might call it, the Game.com, because they put the little period in there. Terrible system. The screen, even for the time, is particularly bad. It is a touch screen. I don't know if you guys can see here, but there's a little stylus that plugs into the front of it. The touch screen is also terrible. You really have to tap hard. It's really hard to see. The games on it aren't very good. They're better than your average Tiger Electronics handheld. But the Gamecom is really a D. Borderline F. It has some built-in stuff. It tried to be like a PDA as well. Keep in mind, this is the mid-late 90s. It has like a calculator on it. It has a calendar. It has a phone book. But yeah, Tiger Electronics was always kind of known for the cheap alternatives to good handhelds. And so their foray into the market being terrible is really not that big a surprise. I don't think many people are going to fight me that the Game.com or the Gamecom belongs down here in a D. Think of it from a military deployment point of view. The gaming road warrior loved having his Nomad while he was on the go in the Navy. I don't disagree with you, but when he was on the go in the Navy, did he stuff all of his pockets full of Sega Genesis games? I think that's the only reason I dropped it down from a B to a C, was because of the form factor of the games. And Oz didn't know the Gamecom. You're lucky. It's not very good. He's still got his Monster Jam Tiger handheld. Awful game, but it looks nice on a shelf. I have some ones that I actually like. I didn't mind them. Kids who just had the Tiger Electronics things, which was me, up until about 95. We played them and we enjoyed them enough. I had like a Star Trek The Next Generation one, Empire Strikes Back, Jurassic Park. There were some decent ones. They're not good in comparison to, playing Sonic on your Game Gear, but they they do the trick. Uh, Game Boy Color. So Game Boy Color adds color to Game Boy games. It has a smaller form factor than the Game Boy, which is more comfortable to play. Uh, is still pretty decent with battery life. Um, Plays all Game Boy Color and Game Boy games, and there were kind of set palettes you could color your Game Boy games. It's an excellent system, and it's a mainstay for a lot of people, and it was an introduction for a lot of people. The I so Chris Walker says he doesn't see Mattel football up there. I did mention Mattel football. We're not doing the standalone games on this. We're doing the consoles. And I'll get to the other comments in a sec. The Game Boy Color, they were so dominant. Nintendo was so dominant in the market at this point. They still felt, no, we don't need to put a light in there. And therefore they were able to make them cheaper, and they cost less than the competition in a lot of cases. Game Boy Color, I'd put in an A. It's a great system. At this point, though, I would have really liked for Nintendo to have a backlight on that screen. I think that would have made the difference and bumped it up. Gamecom is the Tiger answer for the Game Boy. Too bad that Game Boy Color would be released a year later. Yes. And yeah, so Gamecom had and they had this Batman game. They had some licensed games. They did, because they had all the license for their cheap Tiger Electronics games. They had ins for a lot of great licenses and could have potentially done some really cool stuff. They just didn't. they used the licenses, but they didn't produce really good stuff. And it is impressive. Yeah, they already had all the connections. The Neo Geo Pocket. Okay, so this had a couple different models. This had the first black and white version, and then the Neo Geo Pocket Color. Easily, in my opinion, the best non-backlit screen of any handheld, right up to even the Game Boy Advance, which came out after. Excellent screen. Good size, good form factor. Battery life was okay. It wasn't abysmal like the earlier color systems from Nintendo competitors. It wasn't as good as, say, a Game Boy Color, but the difference in the games and just the overall, it's got a good build quality. It's got an analog joystick kind of thing. Think of a Neo Geo CD controller. Really good. Okay. Wired Up Retro says Lynx has a decent. I don't think any of the early 90s handhelds have great screens. When stuff is moving, stuff blurs. So, I mean, I would say of the three here, Lynx probably had the best. But by today's standard, I certainly wouldn't consider them to have great screens. Welcome, by the way. That's Wired Up Retro. He's got I still have to do that Rollerball 5200 thing to make a spinner controller. He does some really cool stuff with controllers on his channel, as well as other stuff. You guys should check him out. We did have him on a Retro Bliss Rewind podcast at one point. Back to the Neo Geo Pocket. There's a smaller library, but it's a good library. Unfortunately, it wasn't supported for very long. I think it was only out for about a year before it was discontinued, and unfortunately, it was SNK's last, piece of hardware, at least from its original days, as opposed to the Neo Geo X or whatever that has a handheld. That's really just porting, has built-in ported games from previous generations. Excellent handheld. It really, really is. I would go so far. I would go so far as to put it S tier. Like I said, I think it's the best of the '90s non-backlit screens. The color version is the one you want to get. Excellent piece of hardware, feels good, great controls. The only thing really holding me back is, again, it's a lot of the SNK um, games, and SNK is really known for their fighting games, and I'm not into fighting games. I love the Metal Slug series. I love some of their other stuff, but I'm just not into fighting games. But that I'm not going to let that poo-poo this console from me. I think it is probably the best '90s handheld um, in terms of build quality and feel and all that stuff. Um, so up here, uh, yes, yeah, just but I mean by the standards of the day, it was as good as they could do, and we talked about that a bit too. The limitations of technology uh, resulted in the hardware that we got. Oh, nice. Think Vita and Steam Deck. Yeah, like there's some great screens now for sure. You're very welcome, sir. I like your channel a lot. Yes, so there was a black and white was the original. The version you want to get if you're going to pick up one is the color one. A lot of the games are going to be in Japanese. It was bigger in Japan than it was over here. Um, yes, and it had even smaller game library in the Neo Geo Pocket color. Yeah, the shooters are what I really like from SNK. I've never been a fighter. Like you get the I have a consoleized MVS, and so I've got like those one of those like 80 on one big cartridges that just lives in it. And there's like 6 games on there because it's like Fighting King 1, Fighting King 2, Fighting King 3. I don't want to play any Fighting King games. I'm a button masher in fighting games. Um, yes, I would consider it to be the best of the '90s. Not in game library, but in quality of build, quality of feel. I really like um, the Neo Geo Pocket Color. Um, yeah, yeah, we talked about, and it was a fantastic idea. We were just talking about some of its limitations due to when it came out. Um, these console oh, there we go. These consoles are awesome. I agree. A lot of them are really, really good, except for the Gamecom. Um, Gamecom is literally. I'm trying to think here. Yeah, it's literally the only one of these because I've played them all. It's the only one I just genuinely didn't have any fun with. It's bad. I didn't play every game from the library. I'm sure there are some decent ones, but it's bad. Okay, so the Wonder Swan, Japanese, but you can get them imported. Not a very good screen. There was a Wonder Swan, then there was Wonder Swan Color. Again, you want to get the color one if you're wanting to pick it up. Uh, yeah, poor Tiger. um, that said, uh, I really like what Bandai was trying to do with this one. It's got different ways to play. It kind of feels like a mentality like the Lynx. It's got two kind of 4-button clusters for the D-pad on the left, but you can flip it onto its side and play vertical games like shooters or stuff like that. Again, it's a Japanese console, so a lot of the games you'd have to translate, but it's a quality system, and there's some really good games on it. Um, from a North American standpoint, I think the fact that a lot of these games are Japanese. Oh, hello, Torque. How are you, sir? Thank you very much for becoming a member. I thought you already were. Maybe not. But welcome and thank you very much. Um, yeah, so I love what they tried to do here. The screen is poor. Oh, you just upgraded. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that very much. Um, thank you very much. The Wonder Swan, I'm going to drop it in at the B. And this is from a North American standpoint. If I was Japanese and I was fluent in Japanese and had access to the full library without requiring translation or anything like that, I think I might move it up to the A. I actually really like the Wonder Swan. I really like what they tried to do. The buttons as the D-pad, I've never liked. I didn't like it on the PlayStation. Thankfully, I use the analog sticks on the PlayStation. Um, I'm not a fan of that. But the fact that they were thinking about different ways to play, um, it was a valiant competitor, at least in Japan, to like the Game Boy Color, and it had better graphics. It was more. It wasn't quite Game Boy Advance, but it was more along those lines. Um, and yeah, the Wonder Swan. There's some really good stuff on the Wonder Swan. If you've never played a Wonder Swan, I would highly recommend. I'm sure there's emulation for it. I would highly recommend giving it a go. It is a good system. I think it came out at the wrong time. I would have liked at least one of these to be one of these D-pads to be a proper D-pad, and the screen again at this point in time it would have been really nice to have a backlit screen. But aside from that, it's a good system. I do like it. I put it at B here because of those flaws. Um, but I could see an argument where it goes up to A as well. Seymour Gore says, all I remember about the Wonder Swan was that it had a decent port of Final Fantasy. There are some, yeah, absolutely. I think there's more than one Final Fantasy game on here. It's got a decent library. It's a pretty good system. And yeah, so some of the games were arcade perfect, and it had an obscure Mega Man and Bass sequel on it, or Mega Man and Bass. I was not aware of that Mega Man one. I'm going to have to look and see if I can find that, or even just find a video of it. That's cool. All right, back to Nintendo. Nintendo comes out with a Game Boy Advance. This first model is not my favorite way to play Game Boy Advance, but it's also not bad. It does feel pretty decent in the hand. Again, no backlit screen. Like at this point, we're like 99, 2000, and we're still not backlighting our screens. Give me a bloody backlit screen. However, the Game Boy Advance is kind of like a Super Nintendo portable with appropriate size cards. And the the game library is just absolutely phenomenal. Um, there's also a lot of schlock on the Game Boy Advance. Before I drag any of these up, the Game Boy Advance SP, the reason I put this here, this is a clamshell, so it protects the screen. I think that was the concern. It's a little tighter, but it's still very, like, I've got big hands. I do actually kind of prefer the wider format for playing. But the reason I put this one here is because it was the first model that uh, you could get a backlit screen, and that is the most desirable model. I would highly recommend, if you are going to um, get, if you're just getting into Game Boy Advance, spend the extra money and get the Game Boy Advance as a backlit screen. Due to the library, which is fantastic, I would say this first model here, you know what? I'm going to drop it to B, because God damn it, if my biggest complaint about the Wonder Swan is we're in the late 90s, early 2000s, and you should damn well have a backlit screen, Nintendo doesn't get preference for that. But once you light that screen, This is the lit version of the screen. This guy here. The one that doesn't have a backlit, we drop here. But the backlit screen version of the Game Boy Advance SP is just a phenomenal way to play that great library. So that's what we're going to do. No backlit. We're dropping you to B. That's my bad Nintendo, bad Nintendo ranking. And this is my, all right, Nintendo, you got it. Finally, after what, like 13 years of making handheld consoles, you got it. Yeah, so some of those WonderSwan ports, particularly Final Fantasy ones, they did eventually make it to the Game Boy Advance. Yeah, yeah. So you can get aftermarket kits where you can replace a screen, but I'm just kind of talking about the main thing. So I agree, and I'm glad at least one person in the chat thinks that's fair. The N-Gage. Why do one thing well when you can do two things poorly? It's a cool idea. You have to remember that this comes out before smartphones. And one of the things, like, I had my phone at this point had a Snake game on it, and that was about it. It was the monochrome LCD screen. And so the N-Gage is, I really appreciate what they tried to do. It's got one of the worst D-pads. A lot of aftermarket things try to do this with a D-pad because it looks really cool, I guess. But it's got like that wavy D-pad that just has like bumps for the directions. The number pad for the phone is on the right, but I think it's the 5 button and the 7 button have like bumps on them because they're your buttons for gameplay. I imagine you would have looked like a moron talking on this back in the day. It looks like a kind of like a taco. Some of the games on it are actually pretty good. And keep in mind, this is before the DS. This is before the Vita. There are some like full-on 3D games here. It's got this weird vertical oriented screen. And so, like, for instance, there's a Sonic game on it. And it's the same as Sonic Advance that you would find on the Game Boy Advance. But because the layout of the Sonic game is landscape instead of portrait, it's got bars at the top. So this screen becomes even smaller. But its biggest flaw, in my opinion, and I'm talking about the first model of N-Gage. The second model of N-Gage, I didn't even know existed until much later. And they fixed some of these problems, but it still kind of sucked. But in order to change games, you had to open the back of your phone and remove the battery to slide out the game and slide a new game in. So, I mean, if you're a commuter and you're just playing through Sonic N, I think it was called, which is Sonic Advance, and you're just playing through that game and you're going to play the same game for like 3-4 days in a row, okay, maybe not that bad. But if you're like a lot of handheld gamers and you want to play 2 or 3 different games in a day, you got to take the battery out of your phone each time. And what's that resetting? What's that? That can't be good. And for that, valiant effort. You're going to be on the same row as the Gamecom, but you're not as bad as the Gamecom, but you're not good. You're in a D. I bought a DP when it came out and I loved it. But if you have the know-how, buy an original Game Boy Advance and you can mod with a new screen for sure. Yeah, I prefer that. And when we start talking about the DS, I think I might surprise some people when I mention what my favorite DS is. Yeah, the N-Gage. Yeah, exactly. Like it was impressive what it could run, and 3D games, and like I think when did it come out? Like 2003. 3D games on a phone when I'm just playing Snake at that point. Impressive. I love what they tried to do. They just didn't do it very well. And oof, I think that refers to like taking out the battery of your phone. Yeah. Um, SP. Yes, the SP. Because we all know what DP means when Mr. Postyle's talking. All right. So moving on to the Nintendo DS. This is the original model DS. Bear with me. I'm putting it at a B. The original Model DS feels like a plastic toy to me. It's a little too big. It feels hollow. Um, it doesn't feel great in the hands. Its big crowning accomplishment is its game library. And that's that's the reason it's up at B. Otherwise, I probably would drop it to C. It's got good battery life. Battery life. If you're in the market for a DS, any of these ones that was actually used, I can almost guarantee you that the stylus that's in there is not the original. My kids all lost their stylus within like the first 2 weeks. You have to go buy like a whole stack of styluses, or just tap the screen with your finger. Um, it The original Model DS feels like a proof of concept more than it feels like a finished product to me. Um, and so I would put that original model at a B. Uh, if you're a big Nintendo fan, don't worry, future ones are going to be ranked higher. The PS Vita, okay, or sorry, the PSP. I remember when the PSP came on the market, Sony put so much marketing behind it. Um, awesome commercials. They tried to go the same way as they did with the PlayStation. The conventional wisdom at the time from Nintendo, who was the leader, was cartridges are the safe thing. And Sony came out with their PlayStation with CDs and just completely took over the home console market. They dominated the Nintendo 64. They dominated the Saturn. It was a phenomenon. And a big reason for that is that CDs could hold more data. So you could have video clips, you could have true like MP3 audio or wave files or whatever they were using at that point. Um, and so they are looking at the time, like the Game Boy Advance and stuff like that, and thinking, we could do this so much better if we had discs. So they created this disc format that's encased in a plastic case with a little hole in it that and that's where the PSP is going to read it. This might be a hot take, but I am not a fan of that format. Even with the plastic case around it, most PSP games that I find are scratched all to hell. Um, in Sony's defense, they play. Uh, The console itself feels pretty good. I do not like that little metal nub that they try to pass off as an analog joystick, but the attempt was put there. Um, there are some fantastic games on the PSP, but I think it was a little too little. Um, if they had like, and spoiler alert, I absolutely adore the Vita. And yet the Vita was a complete commercial flop, and the PSP did pretty well. Um, it's a valiant first effort in the in the handheld market. I would put the PSP at a B. Um, I could see the market. I would put it at B plus. You know what? I like it more than the DS, the original model of the DS. and it has a very good library. The Burnout games alone, I really love. So I'm going to be generous. I'm going to bump it up to an A. Because I do think that the original PSP is better than the original DS in terms of the actual hardware. Game library, DS lives on its game library, and that's why it lived so long. PSP game library was solid. There was some good stuff. Let's see here. Agree with the original. Poe, what do you like to play when on the go? The PSP was epic, except that the PSP Go with its stupid side controls trying because you fully digital system way ahead of its time. The network was nowhere near supporting that functionality. I think there's a couple typos in there, but I get what you're saying, and we're going to talk about the PSP Go. It's a little further down this list. Christopher, I'm a PSP fan. I also agree that the UMD is not a very good format. What a design issue. PSP really could have had a better Gran Turismo. I was pretty disappointed with that. Fair enough. But yeah, Burnout's good on any system. I don't think I've ever played a Burnout game I don't like. And Mr. Postile usually plays his Atari Flashback Portable or his new Super Pocket. He has Intellivision Collection 1 for it and has a bunch of Atari 2600 games built in. Cannabis Kid agrees with something I said. And if he's at home, he plays a Switch or his PlayStation Portable for PS5 games. Hasn't touched his Vita in years. That's a shame. That's a shame. I really like the Vita. Christopher still has his PSP Go to this day, but he found that the joystick's broken. I mean, what other handheld can I play Mega Man Powered Up and watch Zombieland on the same handheld? I put Neo Geo Pocket at an S. You want to fight me for it? It's got the best non-backlit screen from the 90s. It's got excellent controls. Pretty decent library. I mean, library is probably its weakest thing. Its build level is great. I love the Neo Geo Pocket. Yeah, it's and it wasn't cheap. Yeah, the PSP was a valiant effort. And yeah, I love the Vita. Okay, so after the Nintendo DS first model, they came out with the model that I think really solidified the DS in most people's heart. And that is the DSL or the DS Lite. It is a much slicker form factor. It still played Game Boy Advance games. That's something I didn't mention. The DS could play Game Boy Advance. The DSL can play Game Boy Advance. They removed that functionality with the DSi. Good screen. Again, if you're buying used, that stylus is probably not original. Yeah, I mean, come at me, bro. I'll fight you anytime, anywhere. You said that the Switch deserves to be an F. You are clearly either such a cold, dark heart, or you are just such a hater of certain things that you cannot see reality. And you wanted to put Jaguar at an S. I'll fight you in your opinion anytime. Because I lumped them together. If you were watching, you can watch it back and fume at some of my picks here, but I fused a bunch of different systems. Same with the 3DS. I fused that. And yeah, Christopher, Vita, man, I really love the Vita. I'm gonna be gushing about the Vita soon. And Casey's with me. The Switch is amazing. The DS, but the DSL is like when you think DS, I think most people think. And yes, because I put the Switch on my other console, I decided it's not a dedicated handheld, so I decided to do that. Um, it's amazing for adults too. Your cold, dark heart cannot sway me, sir. This is why I love doing these. I genuinely love this. Okay. The DSL, you take that massive library and now you put it in a form factor that doesn't feel like a prototype. I think the DSL is an S tier console. Um, I I had both a PSP and a DS back in the day. I mean, I still have them, like original DS. When it was like that, I played the PSP more. Once I got my DSL, I played the DS more. Um, I just think it is the quintessential DS. It is in, one it's not my favorite way to play DS now, but at the time, it was, uh uh Jeremiah, thank you for the $2. It stays there until I put the next thing up. Then I drop it back down to A. Um, PlayStation TV. I had such high hopes for the PlayStation TV, but I'm going to talk about that when we get to the Vita. Mr. Postal, $2.01. I'll move it back down. Okay. Anyhow. And I just realized that Jeremiah Thomas donated that on Retro Bliss's channel. So you're welcome, Phil. I sold out so that you could make $2. Okay, so DSI. Um, the DSI, it took away the Game Boy Advance compatibility. It added internet connection. I didn't care. I think the bigger loss here is the lack of whatchamacallit, the lack of Game Boy Advance support. Um, I like it. Doesn't wow me. It wasn't a huge improvement. It's not as I think it's honestly it's way better than the original Model DS, but it's not as good as the 3DS. It's not as good as the 2DS. It's not as good as the DSL. I'll slide it in between. Oh, is it? Okay. Well, then maybe you are on my channel and you're not, because I'm simulcasting this on Phil's channel. I'm just looking at the icon on the side, so I could be wrong. Nvidia sure, but the Switch 2 can die in a car fire. Well, there's many Switch 2s. I don't think they can all die in a car fire. Yeah, so I'll put it there. And now that I've put my next one on there, this comes back here. Just wait 3 seconds for Jeremiah's angry post. Okay, no, I haven't seen it yet. PSP Go. What a good idea. A little ahead of its time. As you guys probably are aware, I am not a fan of digital distribution. I'm let me rephrase that. I am not a fan of non-physical media. I want physical media. I want the game to be on that physical media. I don't want to download code on a disc. But if there is one genre that we can hopefully agree, it would be nice if I didn't have to carry all my games around with me. It's portable gaming. It's handheld gaming. And so the PSP Go tried to do that. There's no physical media. You download the games and you install them on your system and you have them wherever you go. The form factor of the PSP Go, I am not a big fan of. Again, I've got big hands. It is a much smaller system. It's got a good screen. I don't like the whole sliding thing. Sometimes it tries to slide back on. But I love what they were trying to do. But if I'm going to be playing a PSP, I would rather be playing the original model. I'm going to put the PSP Go at a B. It's, again, a valiant attempt. You can throw emulators on here. You can do a lot of stuff with it. It's worth having a PSP Go. I just think they tried to do it a little too soon. Okay. Knickles. Canuck Bucks. Yeah, no, the only reason is because when I'm simulcasting, usually the people who don't have a little logo beside them in StreamYard here are on Phil's channel, and the ones who do are on my channel. But I could be wrong, or maybe it's reversed because of the way I set it up. Yeah, the Go was basically a stepson of the PSP, but it was a valiant attempt. I'm glad I have one, but I think B tier is where it belongs. So we're going to be talking about all the 3DSs. 3DS, for those of you who are not aware, tried to introduce 3D gaming. So you had the 3DS, you had the 3DS XL, then you had the new 3DS, then the new 3DS XL, and the XL was just a bigger version. My preferred way to play 3DS if I want 3D is the new 3DS XL. It's a nice big screen. The 3DS added an analog thumbstick that I think is better than the one that the PSP had, but not as good as the one as the Vita had. It's not a proper thumbstick. It's a nub that you kind of move around, but it's rubber. So it doesn't hurt your finger after prolonged gameplay. It's not like a metal nub. Again, it plays the entire DS library, but also 3DS games. 3D, there is one game. There are some games that require it. A lot of games don't require it. And you could adjust it. The earlier versions of the 3DS, you had to be like bang on in the zone to see it. Like you don't need glasses or anything. It bends the screen. The later models, like the new 3DS XL, that effect was much better achieved. I played Super Mario 3D Land, and I loved it so much. And I played it in 3D. I loved it so much. I 100%ed it. And to 100%, you got to get like all the coins in every level. You have to beat every level with both Mario and Luigi, and you have to jump at the on the top of the pole at the end of every level. There are some fantastic games. There's a great Zelda game on the 3DS XL. I'm happy putting it at an A. Again, it's solid. It's really, really good. I don't think that like the 3D to me was a bit of a gimmick. It's needed in some games, but in most cases, not needed. Yeah. So let's see here. Wait, you don't have the Sony Ericsson Xperia Play on the list? I do not. And you may be the only one that owns one. I don't have one. And yeah, so one thing that Nintendo can count on is that if they release a slightly different model, a lot of people will still buy it. Whereas if you wait and then they release the better model, just buy the better model. Torque says, yes, Mr. Postile, it's just you. And it was your first smartphone. You're so proud. We're proud of you, Poe. I have to get a new 3DS someday so I can mod it. Yeah, I'm not really aside from like shell swaps and stuff, I'm not really up to date on the DS modding scene. I don't know, like, is there a big modding scene? They seem pretty solid as systems on their own, unless you mean like modding the software so you can like pirate games and have emulators and stuff. Uniqueness is something to be proud of. Hello, Baz. How are you, sir? All right. Next, we're talking about the PS Vita. Okay. I love the Vita. It's got such a great screen. It feels great in the hands. It's the only one of these things that I actually bought like a grip so that it can feel even better. Best like for a handheld, like really good analog thumbsticks. It's man, Sony made such a fantastic system with the Vita, and it flopped terribly, and I'm not entirely sure why. I wish this had gotten so much more support than it did. I like the form factor of the games. They went to little cards. I like the screen. Like I said, it's a nice big screen. It doesn't mess around with like touch controls. It does mess around with this stupid touch thing on the back. I don't like that. I played the Assassin's Creed Liberation on this, and there's like I had to hold it up to the light, and then like I don't like that. But man, does it feel good. Man, does it play well. I played The Wolf Among Us, I think it's called. I played The Walking Dead 1 and 2, like those Telltale kind of games. I really, really like the Vita. The library is actually pretty decent. Not as expansive as the DS library, obviously, but there's decent stuff there. A lot of it comes from Japan. What was I going to say? Oh, the PlayStation TV. I had such high hopes for that and being able to play some of these games on a big screen. And unfortunately, the compatibility is pretty crappy with that. I think you can mod them to have better compatibility. But I really wish that Sony had supported it more. I understand why it didn't. But I love my Vita. I've got 2 of them. But I'm going to take, because of its lack of support. Well, but it's better than the PSP. Oh, but then like it was. Do I put a complete flop in S tier? Do I do that? Yeah, why not? I can be ridiculed by people. I love the Vita. It's one of the best handhelds ever made, in my opinion. Um, I just really wish it had been more successful. I really do. It does not get nearly enough love. It's like everybody remembers the PSP. A lot of people don't even remember the Vita. I left out the Motorola Z line of phones. Yep, I did. Love the 3DS. Didn't own it, but both my kids stole it every chance that they could. Yeah, 3DS was great. The grip for the Vita is so there were several different ones. I found one that I really liked. It wasn't the one with like the really long handles. It had just like the little nubs, but made it feel really good. This may be a hot take. I'm not a huge fan of the Uncharted games. I do have it for the Vita, but I wasn't the biggest fan. But it's not because it isn't a great Uncharted game. It's just because I'm not a big fan of the Uncharted games. Yeah. So yeah, you were talking about modding it, the software to play. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There were there were issues, and it had the proprietary storage card that was stupid expensive when they could have just used a micro SD. Um, my only true XP is with the Sega Game Gear. I love playing uh, Psychic World, Psychic World on it. Torque has one in the closet. And the Vita, yeah, it has a lot of indie games you could download. It had like the PlayStation Store on it and all that. I'm sure it's discontinued at this point, but I love the Vita. And it was a sad day when I sold her to kickstart my PS5 fund. The best game I played on Vita was Murasaki Baby. Oh, I'm sorry you don't have your Vita anymore. I really do like the Vita. And Vita TXK by Jeff Minter. Ooh, I love me a good Jeff Minter game. Yay. Zenbloke, for those of you who don't know Zenbloke, he's been on a couple of these now. He is a huge PlayStation fan, huge Sony fan. So he's very happy that I put the Vita up there. Still running, albeit in a broken state. Okay, so he's referring to the Sony store. But pretty soon it'll be, well, you want games on your Vita, you're gonna have to hack it or whatever in order to get your games. It's just unfortunately the reality. And yes, Zenbloke is joining us from Scotland, so he is it's very late for him. But we're winding up here. Okay, so the 2DS. This is my favorite way to play DS games. I love the form factor. Much like I prefer the form factor of the original Game Boy Advance to the SP, but the SP with the backlit screen, that version of it anyway, much better system. 2DS, I remember when it came out, me thinking, oh, why would I even need that? And then my kids were both and we were getting ready to do a big road trip down south in the US. See you. Oh dear. All right. Yeah. I hope Nacho's all right. But have a good night, dude. Get a good sleep. Yeah. 3DS Junior version, Junior edition. But here's the thing. I bought one of these. They were on sale. And I bought one of them for each of my kids. And they played it on the road trip and they had, they loved it. And then there was one time, like they went to sleep and I was like, hey dude, I think my younger son, hey dude, you mind if I play something? He's like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And it feels so good. You don't have it kind of like the clamshell, the weight of the clamshell. It's one piece. It, especially in my hands, it felt really good. It's my favorite way to play DS. And even most 3DS games, because you can play 3DS on the 2DS. It just doesn't have the 3D screen. I love it. I absolutely love it for its feel. It's got the little thumbstick. It has, pretty much everything that the 3DS has, except for the actual 3D screen. And it plays the entire library. It's a wonderful, wonderful system. It's not as iconic as a DSL, so I'm not going to throw it up here in S tier, but it definitely, like, I would say it's an A plus for me. It's my favorite way to play DS to this day. Let's move along here because we're at an hour and a half. I'm sorry, guys. All right, the Evercade. I'm going to make some people mad. I'm going to put the Evercade at a B tier. And the reason I'm putting it at a B tier is because I love what they try to do here. And they successfully do it. But there is very, very little that you can play on this system that you can't play 100 other ways with emulation or with whatever. The Evercade is primarily collections of older games, which is great. I love that. I think there's only 1 or 2 exclusive games to it. The D-pad is not the best. The second model of it, which I actually have upstairs, I like much better than the first model. The first model's okay; it's not bad, but it's an okay way to play a lot of these things. It's priced accordingly. The games are priced accordingly. You spend like $25-$30 and you get 10-12 games. And as long as you're not one of these people that has to have everything, you can build a pretty solid small collection of games to play on the Evercade and enjoy it. But I don't think it matches the rest of the stuff here. Last but not least, man, my throat's starting to get sore. Last but not least is a Playdate. Hey, actually, I have mine right here. Playdate. And mine needs charging because I haven't played it recently. The whole thing with this, when it came out, now if you go to the Playdate website now, this thing is expensive. I think it's more expensive than I paid for it in pre-order. I pre-ordered this. But the whole thing about the Playdate was it's got this crank. And now this is a different way. Whoops, that's magnet there. This is a different way to play games. Here, let me... it's like it literally has a little crank. And you can play games like this. And this becomes like an analog controller. And I was like, okay, that looks like something I wouldn't like. But I do love oddball stuff, and so let's give it a try. And in some games, I actually like that little crank, but in most games, I was right. I don't really like that crank. It is also small. That's good. It's very portable. It doesn't feel like tiny. It's got a good D-pad. It's got good buttons. The screen is not backlit, but is very high quality. You look at it, you're like, oh my god, this is going to be like one of those 90s screens, and it isn't. It's a better screen than that, but you do need light in order to play. I love what they were trying to do. It is also digital only. There is a big community of people who have made free games on itch.io that you can download, but then you have to go to their like online site, log in, load the games there, and then it will send it to your Playdate, and you have to download them on your Playdate. I'm not a big fan of that. I would have loved if they had put an SD card slot on here and you could just load games on, because Lord knows at some point in time that little online service is not going to work anymore and you won't be able to download or remove games from your system. I like the Playdate. I do. I play it sometimes. A lot of the stuff on itch.io is not the best. I too would put this one at that B tier. It's a fun little thing to throw in your pocket and play every once in a while. It is not a mainstay, I think, of many people's handheld experience. This was in reference to the Evercade. It's an okay handheld. Casey did not buy the Playdate. Wasn't for me. The amount of stuff that you buy that isn't for you is phenomenal. I'm surprised you didn't add this to that list. Fishing Simulator Edition. Yeah, you can. There are fishing games on here, and you can do that. There are some good games. There are some games that utilize that crank pretty well. But more often than not, it's kind of just a gimmick. And I often hear Laura Kate Dale wax lyrical about that little machine. So I presume she likes it. Some people think this is phenomenal. If you're like Pat and Ian, if you were into the CU podcast, Ian's a big handheld guy and he loved this thing. And I could see how some people would absolutely love it, but it's my tier list and I think it belongs at a B. It's not by any stretch of the imagination a bad machine. Look at the other stuff in this lineup. So that, guys, well, that says a lot. I buy most and didn't get it. Not always right, though. Exactly. For those who like that sort of thing, it's the sort of thing they like. And I'm sure everybody watching would move at least one thing from on this list, but it's my list. So yeah, that is where I'd kind of put the handhelds that are on this list. Again, I understand that the Virtual Boy is not a handheld, but it was designed as kind of a portable system, so we're going with it. I would like to thank everybody for being here. If you are a content creator or just want to do this for fun, this tier maker list, as well as the rest of the ones that I've made, are the link for it is in the description. And I have created other ones that I have done on the podcast before. These are the handheld consoles. These are the gaming consoles. If you don't know, like if you want to just do it for fun, or if you want to do it on a video, just skip the ones you're not familiar with. Also, Electronite homebrew games, Homebrew Inc. games, and Intellivision collector games. So absolutely, if you're going to make a video on it, tag me in the video. I would love to see where you put yours. I think Game Freak mentioned that he might do the gaming consoles one, and maybe we can get him to the handheld one as well, because I know he's big into the Evercade. Thank you very much, Christopher. I appreciate that. Wow, I'm impressed. Yes, Casey, do a tier ranking of all my intros. I should do a tier ranking of all my intros. I'm very biased. I prefer the ones where my kids are in it. They're my favorites. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. I know I went super long on this one. We're almost at an hour 40. Whether you're watching from my channel or from the Retro Bliss Gaming channel, I appreciate you watching. And we'll see you next time on Mike's Gaming Gala and on the Retro Bliss Rewind podcast. We'll see you later.